My brother-in-law is an ancient history professor and he's coming to a big birthday this year, so I had to find him something special and I think I found the Holy Grail. Wrong Harrison Ford character and also not Harrison Ford playing it, but... Isn't The Last Crusade the best movie of the Indiana Jones franchise? I definitely think it is, but if you think differently, please let me know in the comments. That being said, the Holy Grail is probably one of the most replicated props ever, and you're spoiled for choice if you're looking for a replica, unless you're making one, like I'm going to make today. Now, when it comes to make a replica, the very first step is research, and my research landed me on two main sources of information. The first is the replica made by Regal Robots a few years ago, which, yes, is a replica, but it's a scan from the original prop held at the Lucas Archives, a place that I really wish I could visit and I probably never will. The other one is the actual prop and was sold at auction by Prop Store also a few years ago. Now, when you look at them side by side, they're not the same prop, are they? And that's because the one sold at auction is actually a stunt prop and was used in the scenes where he's stumbling on the floor and falling into the hellhole or whatever that was. And this means I had to make a difficult choice, and eventually I decided to go with the one from Prop Store for two main reasons. The first is, a lot of people ask this one, because it's been mass-produced, and the second one is because Prop Store was so kind to publish this photo here, which has a straight size reference, and I'll take that every day. So it's time to pop this picture in Rhino and start making my own replica. I'm definitely not a pro user of Rhino, but this first part of the process is fairly easy. You just import the image, draw a line to the size that you want, and rescale the image to that size. After that, I picked up the polyline command and I followed the profile very accurately, trying to capture every single irregularity of the surface, and this will make it look like it's been handmade rather than produced in a factory. Of course, I didn't have a section cut, so I had to make the interior of the cap up, and I also wanted to add a cavity in the handle for a reason I will show you shortly. What I totally had no idea of is that Rhino is a surface modeler, and as such it won't model a hollow surface, and I only realized that when I went to slice the grail in Bamboo Studio, just to find out that the cavity was not there. I won't bother you with all the details of how many attempts it took me to try and fix this problem, but eventually the solution was to add a very tiny hole at the bottom of the grail so that the outside and inside surface will become just one. And there you go, I finally have my cavity, and I can set Bamboo Studio to pause the print just before capping the cavity and give me a shout so that I can do something before carry on and complete the print. And since I have no idea how the grail is going to be stored once I give it to its rightful owner, I decided to print it in ASA because it's a much stronger material and because it has a higher resistance to heat. So even if it ends up close to a window, I know it won't melt. I mean, getting that print running took a bit longer than I thought it would, but now it's done. I can look forward to the next stages, and it wouldn't be an Indiana Jones prop if some deep research into the archives was not involved, and I had to dig pretty deep to find two glories from my past projects. The first one is my gilding box, more about that later, and the second one is my eyes box. You see, there was a project ages ago that I never managed to finish, where I was trying to make some replica eyes. I don't know if I ever finish it, but keep an eye on this channel, it might still happen. And the reason I have this box here now is because I was trying to make these eyes heavier, and the way I thought it would work was to get some very heavy and very large fishing weights. I'm going to use these to make the grail feel a bit heavier, so it doesn't just feel like a piece of plastic, but something heftier. I think I have room for 3 of them. I will see how many I can fit, but that's the plan. Let's get on. As soon as I got the alert from the printer, I mixed up some 30 minutes epoxy glue because I don't want the grail to become a rattle toy. This is the first time I do this thing of posing the print. It looks scary because it's got this red alert on the bottom like it's broken or something, but it's all fine. So I'll try to open it as little as possible because ASA, it's very hot. The bed gets to 100 degrees, so if you open the door, it's probably gonna mess it up. I think it will. I got my glue ready in my pot, and I got my balls. According to my calculation, I'll be able to fit 3 of them. It's time to dip them into the glue and put them in. I have to try not to throw any glue on the bed, because that would be really bad. And close. Okay, the printer has restarted, the hole is capped now, which is great. There is a bit of a worry in my mind. It's just because we all assume plastic is waterproof, and it actually isn't. It's hygroscopic, it absorbs moisture. So there is a slim but not negligible chance that the weights are going to rust over, and that rust may leach outside of the grail. I hope the epoxy glue coating will make it even more unlikely, but we'll see. Okay, enough goofing around. Very happy with the print, I have to say. It looks quite natural. I can see all the ondulation and the irregularities that I added. It's very transparent, so at the moment it's difficult to judge because I can see, well, from this side at least, I can see all the internal structure. So I think before even starting to sand it, it's time to add some primer. Alright then, well, I got a couple of coats of primer and I have to say it's looking okay. I can definitely see a lot of layering, but that's not going to be a big problem because it's just a matter of filling and sanding and filling and sanding. As you can see, there's quite a notable seam. Here I already started sanding and spraying a few more primer on this point, and it's actually gone almost completely. The other thing I can notice is that the top surface is definitely showing the normal issue with filament printers, which is a fairly textured surface. That's going to require some filling. But before you can do that, we need to actually make it more realistic by adding the final touches that make it more natural and organic, which means making this top surface more wavy and irregular, and the same goes for the bottom. So for that, I'm going to use my belt sander. Well, you know, it was perfect. I barely, very barely broke into the support in one spot. Well, maybe a bit in this one as well. It's not a problem. I mean, I was expecting that. I was actually expecting it to be a lot worse. This is amazing. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna use 180 grit sandpaper and smooth the hell out of this, and then keep painting it and filling it, and then I'll get it ready for painting.
Hang on, something didn't feel quite right. After checking the image more carefully, the top edge definitely needed more work, so I had to hack into it with a Dremel, and that required a lot more filling with the Bondo. And of course I only had some very old Bondo, so I had to use acetone to make it more malleable, but I got it to the consistency I needed.
Well, I mean, hacking into the tripping was a little bit scary, but I've done it enough times to know that I should just carry on and bring it home. Well, I suppose if this was a limited run, if I had to make more of these, I would probably spend more time on the file to make it come out of the printer already with the shape I want. But as a one-off, I find making things by hand gives you a lot more spontaneity and realism compared to drawing on the screen, because when you work on a 3D software, you have to put thoughts in everything you do. Every movement of the mouse cannot just be random, while when you do things by hand, you can just run with the flow and get some happy accidents, like someone will say. Okay, it's time to start painting. I'm going to use acrylics because they're easy to use, they stick to pretty much anything, and they are water-based, so there's no smells and no toxic stuff coming out of them, and it's definitely my favorite medium. That being said, I never use this particular brand, just what I found at the local art shop. Hopefully it will work fine. But the first color I will start with, it's called Red Earth. I will give a couple of coats to the Grail and also to these little samples that I prepared, just to check that I can actually achieve the right looks and I can match the original prop the way I wish. First of all, let's dry the brush and let's shade the color well, because the pigment can deposit on the bottom. There we go, I got a leak, obviously. Dry the bottom. I even just started and I'm already making a mess. I suppose that's part of the fun, isn't it? So I gave a first coat already to that little sample there, and I will do the same on these other ones. I gave a very fine sand to the whole lot with a Scotch Brite Superfine from 3M. They are very, very good, very, very expensive. I'll try and get all the shine out of the surfaces. The inside is not that important because it's going to be gilded anyway, so that's like you painted with glue essentially. Okay, I've not tinned this paint with water yet because it's already very liquid, and that's probably part of the issue. Some paints like Games Workshop, I don't know if now it's called a different thing. It was I think it used to be called Citadel, the paints from Games Workshop. Now they might be called something else, or they might not exist anymore, but they were excellent because they were very, very thick, and they will stick to anything. Very bright, unusual color like Goblin Vomit, I think it was one. Very funny names. Oh my god, that brings me back at least 30 years. But I can't find it anymore. I mean, I don't have any Games Workshop store nearby. Here in UK there used to be Games Workshop shops pretty much everywhere, and now they're becoming rarer and rarer by the day. And they had the little figures, which I never actually painted, but they had the colors, and those were excellent for many other applications. So I used to go very often, and I used to buy loads of them. We should be okay. As I said, this is a very dark color for the terracotta. It's not quite there. But I have a brighter one, which I'm going to sponge. Now let's get on with the second coat. You need to be sure that the first coat is very well dry. If you lay a wet coat on a layer that is not fully dried, eventually that's gonna crack. I'm gonna give it a first coat underneath, even if it gets scratched. It doesn't really matter much right now. But at least I get that out of the way. Spray painting is definitely faster, but there are things that you cannot obtain by spraying paint, particularly on a job that requires texture and layering with sponges. Paintbrushing actually gives you a bit of a texture on the surface that can be very, very useful, so airbrush and quick paint job is not always the answer. The second color we're going for is Raw Sienna, which incidentally is one of my favorite cities in Italy, Siena. It's in Tuscany. So this is quite orangey, but still in the same tone of the brown. And I will try a few tests. My first approach will be to get a piece of sponge and use it undiluted, dump it in the paint, then dry it up a little bit on a piece of rug, and then mottle it on the surface. I can tell straight away this is too defined. I can actually see too much of the texture, but I don't think that's going to be the right approach. I will add some water to it and do something like that, which looks terrible right now, but let's see what happens when I dry it. Okay, I think two things happened here which I'm not completely happy about. First is it's still too strong, and the second is that they are way too large. So I need to dab it a bit more so there's less paint left on it. Yeah, that's more or less the effect I'm aiming at, but I will definitely dilute it a bit more. Well, a bit more, a lot more. And then tap, 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 tap. I think that's more like it. I mean, I cannot basically see at all the paint, and that might look like a fail, but actually makes me think I'm in the right direction. I will carry on this test for a little bit, see if I get anywhere. Right, I don't think I cracked the paint job just yet, but I played around with a few options. The lighter colors like the terracotta, the sienna, and the light brown tones, so to speak, they are way too bright. While I noticed that red and a bit of orange actually get me closer to what it looks like on screen. It's a bit too red right now, but it gives me enough confidence to start with this and then build up with the lighter colors to bring it where I want it to be. So let's start with the red and let's work from there. I can always tone it down with some of the original brown again, like if it gets too red or too orange or too whatever, and going back with the sponge is actually going to add to the layering, so it's just going to work beautifully in the end. It's a trial and error process, there's no fixed recipe. I will carry on until I'm happy. So last night I did a bit of a boo-boo, because before going to bed I decided to spray it with some frosting to make it matte. And I used this product here, which is the Plasticoat Clear Coat Frosting, which I used for years and it works brilliantly, except I don't know if it's defective, the can, or it's very old, but after a few seconds of spraying it started splurting paint on the Grail as it was a garden sprinkler, and I got a lot of blotches and a lot of irregularities. And if that wasn't enough, because it was sticky, it started peeling off paint from the oil paper that I have in the spray booth, so I got a lot of little grey dots. The good thing is that there's a lot more going on with the paint job, so I don't need to redo what I've done. I can just give it a bit of a sand and then actually paint on top of what I've done. The message here is, don't do what I did, whatever there was. Now, the next set of colors, it's more into the yellows, in the bright yellows. It's kind of confusing because if you look at the prop in the movie, it looks like it's got gold patches, but the more I look at the photos, the more I realize that there might be some speckle of gold in the prop I'm replicating, which is probably not the hero prop, and the most of it is actually yellow ochre, closer to, say, these stones, well, maybe more like these stones here, and then there might be some speckles of gold, so I'm not gonna gild the outside. The thing is, the texture it's very patchy, and to recreate that sort of patchiness just with a brush is probably not gonna work, so I need to find a way to mask it, and the way to do it is to use masking fluid. And if you never use this, it smells like hell. But it is non-toxic, unless someone is allergic, just check before using it. And I'm going to sponge it on the surface. I'm gonna get a piece of sponge. I stole this to my wife. They are very, very expensive natural sponges, so I think I will be single again once she sees this video. But anyway, I mean, it's for her brother, so I have an excuse. And I'm basically going to do the same I did for the paint job, except this time I'm doing it with latex. The thing about this product is that once it dries, it can then be peeled off by rubbing your fingers all over it. And the reason I'm using the sponge is because that's going to give me that sort of broken edge effect that I'm after. So something more like this. I'm essentially covering almost everything that I've done in yellows and ochres. I'm not trying to replicate the original paint job exactly. It would be virtually impossible, and the original prop works because everything that was done to it in terms of aging it, it's spontaneous. So if I try and replicate it by the dot, by being very accurate, I will lose that spontaneity. It smells horrible. I can't even describe this smell. I don't know, it's something that you need to experiment for yourself. There's some sort of rotten fish in it, but it's not that. I can put my finger on something that smells similar to this. It's a very specific smell. It's just horrible. It gets very clear, but luckily, because I sprayed the matte before, I can see where is gloss and where is not. There are gloss patches as opposed to matte patches where the original paint job is. Okay, it's dry. I'm going to hit it with some light terracotta first. Then I'm going to give it a strong light with some proper yellow, very diluted. These colors are all very diluted, so it's going to be a progressive. And then I'm going to tone it down with the raw sienna color, which is a medium ochre brown. I will start with this, just see how we get it on. Wee! It was going like in the movie, eh? It was going just... You didn't see that. Deep, squeeze, dry, and go. I like these processes just because a lot of the time, I mean, from your end, it may look like I know what I'm doing. I really don't. It's trying to match the color and trying to build the texture. For me, at least, it's a completely made-up process. It's not something I do daily, so I never developed a proper method. It's more like looking at an image and then try and figure out how to achieve it. If you don't make it because you second-guess everything you do, you're no longer a maker. So this is giving me a very strong color, base color now. I can actually see it very clearly. I'm gonna hit it with some yellow now. As I'm expecting, this is going to throw the whole thing off, because obviously yellow it's very stark. It's not necessarily a color that blends well with these tones, but then I'm gonna tone it down with the brown, and hopefully, keep saying hopefully, because I mean really there's a lot of trust in this. There's a lot of leap of faith. The yellow, it's throwing me a bit off. I'm tempted to add a little bit of orange. Probably gonna warm it up a little bit, but I don't want to overdo it. Moment of truth. I'm going to remove that's how it looks like right now. And I have to say, if I didn't have to follow the template of the original prop, I would actually be quite happy with the way this looks now. But let's see what it looks like once I remove the latex. Okay, I will do this a few more times and I will try different colors. There's no particular point in showing you the whole process because it would be quite boring, but we're getting somewhere. It's starting to look like an antique artifact anyway, which is what we are after. Let's see where this is going. So I gave it a very generous layer of latex and then I went very heavy with the brown. So at the moment it looks kind of terrible, but hopefully almost nothing of what I've done here will actually stay on the grail. I think I need to add more tones. I will go with the green, lighter green now, just to give it a bit of a variety. Again, little dabs and little dobs, and hopefully not much of it will be left and will reflect the kind of image I'm going for. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It could be a bit lighter. I'm really risking it. It could do with a bit of white, I think. White doesn't necessarily make color just lighter, it also dulls them down. So this is more of an olive green now. What happens if I add a lot more green? Okay, I want to use this very sparsely. I don't really want it to be something I want to see much of. So I'm just gonna randomly. It's completely scary because I'm assuming that the latex is covering most of it and I'm only going to have little speckles, but it might turn out into a proper disaster. Dabbing a bit, dabby, bit more dabby here. I ruined it. Let's see what it looks like once it's dry. Cooly dooly. This is a make or break stage, I think. So far so good. So far so good. Okay, yes, now it's working fine, I think. We did well. I think we are happy. I'm really loving this metal brush. Now, before getting into the next stage, I'll pass the line to previous me for a little but important chat. Thank you, Fisher Danny. Let's talk about props. When we watch a movie, we idealize everything we see on the screen and we imagine it to be perfect and beautiful and we really want it as a display item in our homes because we are geeks. Problem is that a lot of the times these props are made in a rush with a very low budget, and because of the lighting and the effects and the fact that they're seen for very few seconds on screen, they don't need to be perfect. And when we see the original prop, that might not look like we expect. And that's what I call the pulse rifle effect. You see, this is a replica of the pulse rifle from the movie Alien that I did a few years ago. Now, it's green. The original prop is actually brown. But the problem is that because of the lighting in the movie, it does look green, to the point that when they organized an exhibition of the original props at the time of the release of the movies, they had to paint them green, because otherwise people would have thought that they were fake. And this brings us to the big conundrum that every replica prop maker has all the time. Should we make the prop the way it is, or the way we remember it? Back to you, Fisher Danny. Well, thank you, previous me. That was interesting. After thoughtful consideration, I decided that even if the original prop is showing very little traces of gold, whenever I look at footage from the movie, I can see a lot of gold. Now, when it comes to gilding, I'm not expert. I did it some time ago, and I was recommended to use this product, which is called Instacol, made by a company called Kölner, which is German, and it's made of two parts. One is the base and one is the activator. The principle is that you paint generously the item with the base, let it dry completely, and then you paint it with the activator, let it dry completely, which takes approximately 10-15 minutes, and then you apply the gilding on top of it. And I have to say, it is fairly easy, but it's still not necessarily the easiest thing in the world. Now, when it comes to gold leaf, there are two main options. One is loose leaves. This was from a very cheap kit I got from Amazon. None of it is real gold, it's imitation gold, of course. So these are loose leaves, which are very difficult to apply because it goes everywhere, it's very difficult to manage. And the other is transfer sheets, which looks like this. So it comes with a paper backing and the gold leaf is attached to it lightly, and then you apply on the surface, push it, the gold stays there, the paper peels out. And what I also have here is a few leftover from my previous projects, which are perfect for what I need to do on the outside of the Grail, because I got all this very patchy texture, and that's exactly what I'm going to use, and it's going to look already aged. So I'm going to use all of these leftovers and then some of the full sheets one. On the inside it's going to be a bit difficult to use the transfer, just because the paper is a bit stiff, so it doesn't quite blend inside. I'll give it a try, I think I can make it work. The original prop is not really perfect inside. The gilding was done kind of in a rush, so it's gonna work just fine.
I'll quickly take the opportunity to apologize for the absolute mess that the autofocus on my camera did for most of the footage of this video, but I mean, that's life, what can I do? Anyway, on the outside of the Grail I used pretty much all the leftovers I had, plus some full sheets, as you can see, and I've been using a rotational movement of the cloth rather than striping it, because that avoids breakage and it confers a better pressure. Now, on the inside I was expecting to have problems with the transfer paper, but I couldn't use the loose leaves because they are a different color. I don't really like it. But anyway, I'm gonna live with the fact that the interior is not gonna be smooth and uniform as the original and a bit more patchy, because it's my interpretation and I'm still quite happy with the result.
Okay, I made a right-up mess. Yeah, I think I got there. As you can see, the shine inside is quite striking compared to the one on the outside, which is a lot more subdued because of the frosting that I sprayed on top. But let's clear the desk because things are about to get messy. The last stage of aging is sort of a speckled flocking with white sand. I'm not sure what they're trying to replicate, but I have to replicate what they replicated. And the only way I can think of is to spread some thin glue on the surface and then spread some dust with a sieve. Problem is, what dust I'm gonna use? Well, coral sand, which I have from my aquariums. One problem I have with this, it's very coarse. So that definitely doesn't work, isn't it? But what I can do is use a coffee grinder. Some of it's way too fine, and I'm afraid that if I sieve it on top of the Grail, it's going to dull the whole thing, because this coating is not quite a dust coating, it's more like sour candies, the one that have that coating of sugar on top. I need to sieve it and get rid of the finer dust, and for that I need a very fine mesh sieve, which I don't have. But what I do have are sanding discs, and so I hopped in Rhino and then I 3D printed myself a bit of a holder. Isn't it amazing? Let's go!
I painted the whole Grail with very diluted PVA, and then I sprinkled the dust on top. I used part of the sieved one and part of the very fine one because the sieved one was a bit too coarse, really. Now, to reproduce the scuffs that I could see on the photos, I just used a stone, and I did that before the glue would settle because it would probably make it easier than when it's completely dry. Just like the painting process, this stage also required a lot of trial and error, several stages. I also added some paint on top of the settled powder and then some more dust until I was completely happy with the result. And here it is, and I have to say I'm very happy with it, and I hope you like it as well. And since you've been so patient to wait until the end of this video, you'll be delighted to know that I poured some water from the Grail onto the subscribe button, so all you need is a click to enjoy a much better life. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.